The first time I saw a human child, I thought it would be easy prey. That was my mistake. Let me back up. My name is Vorthak, Senior Acquisitions Officer for the Krillian Syndicate. We're not pirates, exactly. We prefer the term resource redistribution specialists. We board ships, take what we need, and usually everyone walks away. Usually. The human freighter looked perfect. Small crew manifest, outdated shields, carrying medical supplies through the outer rim. A milk run, as the humans say. My crew of 12 boarded without incident, cutting through their airlock like butter through, well, whatever humans put butter on. Secure the cargo bay. I ordered through the comm. Standard protocol. No casualties unless necessary. My second, a four-armed Grenthi named Calux, nodded his approval. Easy credits today, boss. That's when we heard it. A sound that made my scales itch. High-pitched, repetitive, annoying, crying. There's a juvenile on board, hissed Mrek, our scanner, operator. Small, human. In the aft cabin, I felt my stomach drop. Kids complicated things. They made people stupid, reckless, emotional. But orders were orders, and the syndicate didn't accept excuses. We moved through the corridor, weapons ready. The crew, 3 adults, were already secured in the cargo hold. They'd surrendered without a fight. Smart people. But now they were screaming, begging, making promises they couldn't keep. Please. She's just a baby. Don't hurt her. Relax, I said, trying to sound reasonable. We don't hurt kids. We're professionals. The door to the aft cabin slid open. Inside, strapped into a safety harness, was the smallest human I'd ever seen. Maybe 4 cycles old, judging by the size. Dark curly hair, tear-stained face, clutching some kind of stuffed animal. A predator, I realized. Earth creature. Brown and fierce-looking, even in plush form. Mama, the child wailed. Want mama? Calux raised his plasma rifle. Not to fire, just to intimidate. Standard procedure. Show overwhelming force, discourage resistance. That's when things went wrong. From behind a storage crate, something moved. Fast. Low to the ground. At first, I thought it was a maintenance drone. Then I saw the teeth. It was another Earth creature. Real this time. About 60 centimeters long, thick fur in black and white stripes, claws like diamond-edged blades, and eyes. By the void, those eyes. They looked at us with the kind of intelligence that said, I know exactly what you are, and I've killed worse. The creature positioned itself between us and the child. Its back arched. A low, threatening sound rumbled from its throat. What is that thing? Mrek whispered. I checked my data pad with trembling fingers. The ship's manifest listed 1, emotional support animal, Terran honey badger. Name, Colonel Fluffington. Colonel Fluffington. They'd named this demon Fluffington. It's small, Calux said, aiming his rifle. Move it, or I remove it. The human child screamed. No, don't hurt Colonel. He's good. He's good boy. The honey badger, this Colonel Fluffington, turned its head slightly, not to look at us, to look at the weapons pointed at the child. Then it spoke. I swear on every star in the galaxy, it spoke. Not words, exactly, but a sound. Low, raspy, like gravel scraping across metal. And somehow, impossibly, I understood the message. Wrong move. Calux laughed. Nervous. Did that thing just fire a warning shot? I ordered. Scare it off. Mrek fired at the wall, a bright plasma bolt that scorched the metal plating. The honey badger didn't flinch, didn't blink. It just stared at us, that same cold calculation in its eyes. Then it charged. I've been in combat. Real combat. I've fought Dravian shock troops, Sector 9 enforcers, even a rogue combat mech once. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Prepared me for the sheer violence of that honey badger. It hit Calux first. Not a pounce. A missile strike. Teeth sank into his lower left arm, shearing through his tactical armor like it was paper. He screamed, trying to shake it off, But the creature held on, twisting, ripping, making sounds that belonged in a nightmare factory. Shoot it! Shoot it! Colux howled. Mrek fired. 3 shots. Center mass. I watched the plasma bolts hit the honey badger's back, saw its fur sizzle and smoke. It should have died. Should have dropped, cooked from the inside. Instead, it let go of Calyx's arm, turned, and looked at Mrek. Then it smiled. I didn't know animals could smile. Not like that. Not with murder in their eyes, and blood on their teeth. Run, I said quietly. What? Mrek looked at me, confused. Run. I shoved him toward the door. The honey badger launched itself at Mrek's face. He got his rifle up in time, and the creature latched onto the weapon instead, biting through the plasma coils. The rifle sparked, overloaded, and exploded in a shower of blue fire. Mrek stumbled backward, his face shield cracked. His hands burned. The child was still crying, but quieter now, almost curious. Get them, Colonel. Get the bad guys. We need to retreat. Colux gasped, his arm leaking purple blood. This is insane. It's one animal. One. But our crew was panicking. Someone fired a concussion grenade. In an enclosed space. Like an idiot. The explosion sent us sprawling. My ears rang, my vision blurred. Through the smoke, I saw the honey badger shake itself off, seemingly unbothered by the blast that should have liquefied its internal organs. It moved to the next crew member. Tix, a Vorian scout. Fast, experienced, trained in 7 martial disciplines. The honey badger climbed up his leg, ignoring his frantic attempts to kick it off, and bit him in a place that made Tix's voice jump 3 octaves. It's going for weak points, someone shouted. It knows anatomy. How? How could this creature know Vorian anatomy? We were 3,000 light years from Earth. This made no sense. Unless humans had designed it this way, weaponized it, created the perfect small unit defense system, and disguised it as a pet. Fall back to the airlock, I ordered. Full retreat. We scrambled through the corridor, leaving our dignity and 2 crew members behind. The honey badger followed, casual now, taking its time. It knew we were beaten. At the airlock, I paused. The human crew was still secured in the cargo hold. The child was still in the aft cabin. We could seal them in, space them, be done with this nightmare. The honey badger appeared at the far end of the corridor. It sat down, licked its paw, waited. Boss, Colux wheezed. We can't leave empty-handed. The syndicate will. The syndicate can file a complaint with hell. I snapped. We're leaving. Now. But. I grabbed his good arm and hauled him toward our ship. The rest of the crew followed, stumbling, bleeding, traumatized. As the airlock sealed, I took one last look through the viewport. The honey badger had returned to the aft cabin. It climbed up onto the safety harness where the child sat. The little human wrapped her arms around it, crying into its fur. Good, Colonel, she whispered. Good boy. Protected me. The creature's eyes met mine one final time. In that moment, I understood something fundamental about humans. Something the rest of the galaxy hadn't figured out yet. They didn't need weapons. Not really. They'd spent millions of years on a death world, surrounded by creatures that could kill them in 1,000 creative ways. And instead of exterminating those creatures, they'd done something infinitely more terrifying. They'd made friends with them. Back on our ship, I filed the report. Mission unsuccessful. Hostile defensive systems. Recommend avoiding human vessels in future. Colux looked at me from the medical bay. You're not going to tell them it was an animal? They'll think we're cowards. Let them think what they want, I said. I know what I saw. 3 days later, we received a rebecid transmission. Wideband. Impossible to trace. It was the human child's mother. To the Krillian vessel that attempted to board the freighter Wandering Star. This is Captain Okonkwo. You pointed weapons at my daughter. Colonel Fluffington has provided me with your ship's signature. We are filing this incident with the Terran Defense Ministry. Expect contact within 72 hours. Colux went pale. The Terran Defense Ministry? For one failed boarding? You don't understand. I said, pulling up the files I'd been reading. Humans don't forgive threats to their young. Ever. It's biological. Hardwired. They'll hunt us to the edge of known space if they have to. Over one kid. Over one kid. The transmission continued. However, I'm prepared to be reasonable. You didn't harm my daughter. Colonel Fluffington saw to that. So here's the deal. You leave human ships alone, spread the word through your syndicate, and we forget this happened. You continue your current course, and I introduce you to Colonel's extended family. A new image appeared on screen. It was an Earth facility, a breeding center. Hundreds, maybe thousands, of honey badgers, all looking at the camera with that same cold, calculated stare. We've been domesticating them for defense purposes, Captain Okonkwo said cheerfully. They're quite popular with families traveling through dangerous sectors. Loyal, fierce, and absolutely fearless. Some people prefer dogs or cats. We prefer creatures that laugh at physics and think plasma burns are a mild annoyance. Kalux made a sound like a dying engine. There are thousands of them. Your ship's drives need repairs, the captain continued. I'm transmitting coordinates to a neutral station. They'll fix you up. No charge, courtesy of the wandering star. Consider it a gesture of goodwill. And a warning. The transmission ended. We sat in silence for a long moment. So, Kalux finally said, new policy. No human ships. No human ships. I agreed. Ever. Ever. We limped to the repair station, licking our wounds and our pride. The mechanics, a mixed crew of various species, took one look at our damage and whistled. Rough encounter? The chief asked. You could say that, I muttered. What'd you hit? Dravian destroyer? I hesitated. Emotional support animal. The chief blinked. Come again? Earth creature. Honey badger. About this big. I held up my hands. Black and white. Teeth like plasma cutters. The chief's expression changed. Recognition. Fear. Oh no. Oh, you poor fools. You messed with a human ship that had a honey badger? You've heard of them? Heard of them? 3 months ago, a crew tried to hijack a human colony transport. Had 30 armed raiders. The ship had 5 humans and 2 honey badgers. He shook his head. They found the raiders 2 days later. Alive, technically. But they'd given up piracy. And coherent speech. And the will to live. Kalux groaned. We got off easy. You got off lucky. The chief corrected. If the kid had been hurt, you wouldn't have gotten off at all. Humans are weird about their young. And their pets. And especially their young's pets. It's like a multiplier effect. Threat to child plus threat to child's pet equals total war. He began working on our engines. Word of advice? Spread this story. Make sure every crew, every syndicate, every 2-bit operation in this sector knows. You don't touch human kids. You don't point weapons at human kids. And you definitely, absolutely, under no circumstances, mess with their emotional support murder machines. I nodded. Already planning on it. Good. Because next time, you might run into something worse. Worse than a honey badger? The chief laughed, a bitter, knowing sound. Friend, humans have cats that weigh 200 kilos. They have dogs bred specifically for war. They have birds that can mimic voices and plan ambushes. And that's just what they bring into space. Back on Earth, they live alongside creatures that make honey badgers look like, well, stuffed toys. He gestured at my datapad. Look up hippopotamus sometime. Or saltwater crocodile. Or my personal favorite, cassowary. Then remember that humans decided to live on the same planet as these things. Not just survive, thrive, build cities, raise families. Kalux shuddered. They're insane. They're human, the chief said. Which amounts to the same thing. We spent 3 days at the station. Long enough for repairs, long enough for the story to spread. By the time we left, every crew in port had heard about the Krillian team that got demolished by a teddy bear's namesake. My reputation was shot. But I was alive. And I had all my limbs. Considering the alternatives, I'd take it. Word reached the syndicate within a week. I expected anger, maybe termination. Instead, I got a new assignment: education and outreach. What? I stared at my supervisor, a cold-eyed Threxian named Grix. You're going to teach, Grix said. Every new crew, every rookie, every idiot who thinks they can make easy credits off soft-looking targets. You're going to tell them about the human child, and the honey badger, and why we don't touch human vessels anymore. You're making it official policy. 3 other crews tried human ships this month, Grix said flatly. One encountered a therapy dog that weighed as much as a cargo loader. Another met a comfort peacock that somehow triggered every alarm on their ship while the humans counterboarded. The third found out what happens when you threaten a human teenager's hamster. Turns out hamsters can bite through power cables. Who knew? I didn't laugh. Couldn't. So we're just avoiding an entire species? Until we figure out their biological warfare program. Yes. Grix leaned forward. Listen carefully. Humans are newcomers to the galactic stage. Weak, by most standards. No natural armor, no venomous bite, no psychic abilities. But they've got something worse. What? They've got friends. The lecture hall was full. 50 pirates, raiders, and various criminals from across the sector, all mandated to attend my human interaction seminar. Most looked bored. A few looked angry. None of them believed me yet. That would change. Let me tell you about the second time I encountered humans, I began, pulling up a holographic display. 6 months after the honey badger incident, I thought I'd learned my lesson. Turns out, I'd only scratched the surface. A Dravian in the back row snorted. One lucky animal doesn't make humans dangerous. They're weak, slow. Their bones break like twigs. I smiled. Not a happy smile. That's what the Viridian corsaires thought. The room went quiet. Everyone knew the Viridian corsaires. Brutal, efficient, and very, very dead. The corsaires hit a human mining operation on Talgus Prime. Small colony, maybe 200 humans. Civilians mostly. Families. The corsaires figured it would be simple. Take the refined ore, leave. But their captain, Vrask the Render, decided to make an example. Took hostages. Started making demands. I pulled up footage. Grainy, but clear enough. The corsair ship in orbit. Plasma cannons aimed at the settlement below. What Vrask didn't know was that the mining colony had a volunteer security force. 5 humans, ex-military, retired, just looking for quiet life in the outer territories. They had one weapon between them. A slug thrower. Ancient Earth technology. Fires metal projectiles using chemical explosives. A Kryn female raised her hand. How is that useful against plasma shields? It isn't, I said. Which is why they didn't shoot the ship. They shot the colony's fuel depot. Confused murmurs rippled through the audience. The explosion looked like an accident. Catastrophic failure, poor maintenance. Happens all the time in frontier settlements. The fire spread fast. Real emergency. The corsaires saw an opportunity. Send down a boarding party. Rescue some hostages. Look like heroes. Demand even bigger ransom. I paused, letting them absorb it. 20 corsaires landed, heavily armed. They went to the residential sector where families were trapped by the fire. And that's when they met Marcus Osei. The name meant nothing to them yet. Marcus was 63 years old. Grandfather, former Terran Marine. Lived on Talgus with his daughter, son-in-law, and 3 grandchildren. He was carrying his youngest grandson, a baby, when the corsaires found him. I displayed an image. An older human male, scarred face, gray hair, holding a tiny human infant against his chest, standing in a burning corridor. The corsair squad leader pointed a weapon at the baby, told Marcus to surrender, or they'd shoot. Standard intimidation tactic. The room was dead silent now. Marcus looked at him, at the weapon, at his grandson, and he said, "You'll have to shoot through me first." I let that hang in the air. So they tried. 3 plasma shots, center mass. Marcus went down. The squad leader reached for the baby. And Marcus got back up. Gasps echoed through the hall. Turns out, Marcus had a subdermal armor weave. Military grade. Absorb the plasma bolts. Hurt like hell, probably, but not fatal. And while the corsaires were staring in shock, Marcus's daughter appeared from the smoke. Her name was Amara. She was a xenobiologist, specialized in insect behavior. I pulled up another image. A human female in environmental gear, holding some kind of container. Amara had spent 5 years studying Talgus Prime's native insects, particularly the soldier beetles. Aggressive, territorial, and highly responsive to pheromone markers. She'd brought a sample colony for research purposes, and when the fire started, she'd released them, with a little chemical encouragement to make them extra angry and point them in a specific direction. Understanding dawned on several faces. 20,000 soldier beetles hit the corsair squad in under 2 minutes. Each beetle is about this big. I held up my thumb. They don't sting or bite, they swarm. Get into armor joints, breathing apparatus, optical sensors. They excrete an acid that burns through most materials given enough time. And they don't stop until the pheromone marker is gone. A Vorian in the front row looked sick. How long did that take? 6 hours, I said quietly. By the time the beetles dispersed, the corsaires were alive. Technically. But their armor had been dissolved, their weapons ruined, and their will to fight completely shattered. Marcus and Amara walked them to a holding cell at gunpoint. Well, slug thrower point. What happened to the ship in orbit? Someone asked. The other 4 security volunteers had commandeered a mining shuttle, loaded it with excavation charges, rammed it into the corsair ship's port thruster assembly. The charges detonated inside the engine core. Ship went critical. The crew had about 90 seconds to abandon. Most made it to escape pods. I switched to another image. Wreckage, floating in space. The Terran Defense Ministry arrived 3 days later, arrested the surviving corsaires, charged them with 17 counts of attempted murder, kidnapping, and destruction of civilian property. Vrask the Render died in prison 6 months into his sentence. Heart failure, possibly stress-related. The room was utterly silent. The colony rebuilt. Marcus got a medal. Amara published a paper on tactical applications of insect behavior. The baby grew up healthy. And the Viridian Corsaires ceased to exist as an organization because nobody wanted to work for a crew that got beaten by senior citizens and bugs. I turned off the hologram. Questions? A small Threxian raised a tentacle. Why are you telling us this? We get it. Humans are clever, tricky, but they're still fragile. One good shot and they go down. Do they? I pulled up a new file. Let me introduce you to the concept of human medical technology. Specifically, their approach to injuries. Images appeared. Humans with mechanical limbs. Humans with artificial organs. Humans with neural implants. Reinforced skeletons. Synthetic skin. Most species die from catastrophic injury. Humans rebuild. They've been doing it for centuries. Lost a leg? Get a new one. Better than the original. Heart damage? Grow a replacement. Neural trauma? Implant a processor that does the job faster. They don't just survive injuries. They upgrade from them. A Kryn engineer leaned forward. That's not possible. Cybernetic rejection alone would be a problem for most species. I agreed. Human bodies accept foreign materials with minimal rejection. It's part of their evolutionary adaptation. Their immune systems are aggressive but trainable. They can literally teach their bodies to accept machine parts as natural. I zoomed in on one image. A human female with obvious mechanical enhancements, standing in a combat stance. This is Lieutenant Kira Mautonga. Lost both arms and one leg in an industrial accident. Received full prosthetic replacements. Those replacements have integrated weapons systems, enhanced strength, and direct neural interface. She's now the security chief for the largest human trade station in this sector. Her reaction time is 3 times faster than baseline human. Her grip strength can crush Duralloy, and she considers herself lucky. Lucky? The Dravian from earlier sounded skeptical. Lucky because the accident qualified her for military-grade enhancements. Most humans have to pay for that level of augmentation. It's expensive. Popular, though. There are humans who deliberately seek out dangerous jobs hoping to qualify for better prosthetics. Nervous laughter rippled through the room. Unsure if I was joking, I wasn't. But here's the thing that really matters. The thing that ended the corsaires and will end anyone else who thinks humans are easy targets. I pulled up one final image. A human child, maybe 10 cycles old, standing next to a massive canine. Humans don't fight alone, ever. They bring friends, allies, creatures they've bonded with across millions of years of evolution. And they're very, very good at making those friendships work in combat situations. The canine in the image looked friendly, tongue hanging out, tail wagging. But I'd read the file. It was trained for search and rescue. Could find people buried under rubble. Could drag an adult human to safety. Could, if necessary, disable an attacker with extreme prejudice. That's a golden retriever, I said. Bred for temperament and loyalty. Humans give them to children as companions. They also use them in disaster zones, therapy centers, and occasionally, security operations. Because a creature that loves you unconditionally will also protect you unconditionally. I switched images. Different dog. Bigger, darker, scarred. That's a Belgian Malinois. Military working dog. Trained to detect explosives, track targets, and engage hostiles. It can run at 60 kilometers per hour, bite force of 140 kilograms per square centimeter, and it will die before it lets its handler come to harm. More images. Cats with reflexes that defied physics. Birds that could mimic voices and coordinate attacks. Even small rodents trained to detect chemical signatures. Humans have weaponized friendship, I said. They've taken creatures from their death world and turned them into partners. Not servants, partners. The creatures fight alongside them because they want to. Because humans have this bizarre ability to make other species care about them. A young Grenthi pirate raised her voice. So what? We avoid humans with pets. Problem solved. I laughed. Couldn't help it. You think you can tell which humans have combat-ready animals? That golden retriever I showed you? It once dragged a full-grown male through 20 meters of fire to safety. The family cat might be able to see in wavelengths you can't, and hear frequencies that bypass your shields. The hamster could be genetically modified for enhanced intelligence and equipped with micro-surveillance equipment. Her face fell. You cannot assume anything about humans or their companions. That's the lesson. That's why the Syndicate now has a complete ban on human targets. Grick stepped forward from the back of the room. Vorthak has done his research. But let me add something from leadership perspective. Economics. The room shifted focus. Humans are traders, Grick said. Good ones. They have resources we need. Metals, organic compounds, cultural products. They're willing to deal fairly. Why would we antagonize them for short-term gains when long-term partnership is more profitable? A scarred Vorian stood up. Because we're pirates. That's what we do. Wrong, Grick said coldly. We're business people operating outside legal frameworks. There's a difference. Pirates steal from everyone and die quickly. We choose targets carefully and survive. Humans have proven they're not worth the risk. The Corsaires learned that. The Talon Collective learned that. The Midnight Syndicate learned that. Murmurs of recognition. 3 major criminal organizations, all defunct. Each one thought humans were weak. Each one attacked human assets. Each one is now extinct or absorbed into rival groups. The pattern is clear. Grix pulled up statistics. Success rates, casualty reports, economic data. Human ships have a 97% repulsion rate against piracy. 97%. The galactic average is 43%. Know why? Silence. Because humans prepare. They train. They equip their civilians with tools and knowledge and companions that make them harder to victimize. And when you do manage to hurt them, they remember. They track you. They find you. And they make sure you never hurt anyone again. I nodded. After the honey badger incident, I did research. Humans have a saying. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. They Don't accept being fooled twice. If you attack a human ship and escape, congratulations. You've made an enemy who will study you, learn your patterns, and wait for the perfect moment to strike back. A timeline appeared on the screen. Dates, locations, incidents. The Talon Collective hit a human medical ship 2 years ago. Took supplies, injured 3 crew members, escaped clean. 6 months later, Talon's ship started having mechanical failures. Random. Unpredictable. Turned out, human intelligence operatives had infiltrated their supply chains. Every component they bought was subtly sabotaged. Not enough to notice immediately. Just enough to fail at critical moments. Impressed whispers. The collective fell apart within a year. Couldn't trust their own equipment. Couldn't figure out who was compromised. Eventually dissolved due to internal paranoia. The humans never fired a shot. Grix smiled. That's the human way. They don't always fight directly. They're patient, creative, willing to take years if necessary to ensure justice. Or revenge, I added. They use both words, sometimes interchangeably. The lecture ended shortly after. Most attendees left thoughtful, subdued. A few still looked skeptical. Those would learn the hard way, probably. As I packed up my materials, a young Krillian approached. Barely out of training. Scales still bright green. Sir, I have a question. Go ahead. If humans are this dangerous, why hasn't the galaxy united against them? Why do we let them operate freely? I considered the question. Because they're not conquerors. They're not trying to dominate anyone. They just want to trade, explore, live their lives, and they're really, really good neighbors, as long as you don't threaten their kids or their pets. But if someone did unite against them, I thought about Colonel Fluffington, about Marcus and Amara, about the thousands of species humans had befriended, domesticated, or allied with over their evolution. Then I'd bet on the humans, I said quietly. Every time. 3 weeks later, I got a message. Personal encryption. Human source. It was Captain Okonkwo from the Wandering Star. Mr. Vorthak, I understand you've been educating your colleagues about human defensive capabilities. I appreciate that. Saves everyone trouble. As thanks, I'd like to extend an invitation. Next time you're near Talgus Prime, stop by. I'll buy you a drink and introduce you to Colonel Fluffington's sister. Her name is Princess Fuzzyboots. She's very friendly. The message included an image. Another honey badger, bigger than Colonel, wearing a small vest with pockets. One pocket held what looked like micro-grenades. Princess Fuzzyboots. I deleted the message and updated my star charts. New notation next to Talgus Prime. Avoid at all costs. Calix found me in the navigation room. His arm had healed, mostly. He'd kept the scars as a reminder. Boss, we got a contract offer, transport job, good pay. What's the cargo? Medical supplies, food. Standard humanitarian run. Destination. He hesitated. Human colony. New settlement. They're offering double rates because most crews won't take the job. I looked at him. And you think we should? I think humans pay well. I think they don't cheat on contracts. And I think if we establish a good relationship, we'll have more work than we can handle. Legitimate work. Safe work. He was right. The calculations made sense. But I still remembered those eyes. That cold, fearless stare from a creature that weighed less than my arm. Fine, I said. But we follow every regulation, every safety protocol. We're polite, professional, and we absolutely do not bring weapons near any children or animals. Understood? Understood. The job went smoothly. Too smoothly. The humans were friendly, efficient, paid on time. Their children played in the settlement streets with various earth creatures. Dogs, cats, rabbits, even a few small reptiles. All peaceful. All normal. But I noticed the adults watching. Always aware. Always positioned between potential threats and their young. And I noticed the animals watching too. Alert. Protective. As we prepared to leave, a young human girl approached our ship. Maybe 7 cycles old. She held out a drawing. Crayon on paper. Crude but recognizable. "Thank you for bringing food," she said. "I made this for you." The drawing showed our ship, and stick figures, and a large dog sitting nearby. "That's Max," she explained. "He's our friend. He wanted to say thank you too." I looked at the dog. It wagged its tail. Friendly. Harmless looking. Its collar had a small tag. I zoomed in with my optical implant. Read the inscription. Max, service dog, certified protection. Bite force, extreme. Of course it was. "Thank you," I told the girl. "We appreciate the gift." She smiled and ran back to her family. The dog followed, staying between her and us until they were safely distant. Colux watched them go. They're teaching their kids early. Teaching them what? To be kind, but ready. He started the engine sequence. It's actually smart. Raise them friendly so they make allies, but train them to recognize threats and respond appropriately. I thought about that during the long flight home. About humans and their strange combination of warmth and ferocity. About creatures that could be soft and deadly depending on context. Maybe that was their real strength. Not weapons or armor or technology. Adaptability. The ability to be whatever the situation required. Gentle with friends, lethal with enemies, and always protecting their young. The Syndicate never bothered another human ship. Word spread through criminal networks. New policy. Universal. Simple. Leave humans alone. It wasn't fear, exactly. It was respect. Recognition that some prey wasn't worth hunting. Some fights weren't worth starting. And some species, despite appearing soft and vulnerable, had spent millions of years learning to survive on a world that actively tried to kill them every single day. Those species didn't need to look dangerous. They'd learned something better. They'd learned to make friends with danger, and train it to sit, stay, and attack on command. I still have that drawing, framed in my quarters. A reminder, never underestimate the humans, never threaten their children, and never, ever, ignore the warning when a honey badger looks at you and whispers those two simple words. Wrong move.